ladies and gentlemen, Robel Taylor.
Yep. I've been working on the branding of my name and realized that if I replace my middle name with my nickname, I can be Robel Taylor.
Right.
Nobody knows who Santiago is. That's my middle name.
Right.
No one knows, no one cares. I can be Robel Taylor, and the confusion just smooths
and
over.
then they get it. You know, it's funny because when you're on the first time, I labeled it Robel quotes Chacho Taylor, because I always call you Robel, but I know so many people call you Chacho, so you've got to, I got to respect the brand a little bit.
Well, I'm figuring I didn't build it, right? I didn't build this brand. It was my mom and my grandmother and my grandfather, and so they started out with a problem, and they misnamed me because I have too many names.
Right.
And then they gave me a name for my school setting, which was Robel, but the family called me Chacho, so that my friends would be confused because they come to my house and be like, "Who's Chacho?" Yeah. And then they go back to school, and some kids called me Chacho, some called me Robel. It was like, and then a teacher would, I'd get to class and you'd have a new teacher or a sub, and they'd be taking attendance and they'd say, Robel. Right. And then that would just drive me insane, because what kind of human would name their child Robel? Right. Like, really, who would do that? And then as I grew up and went to college, my best friend Harley, he went to college with me, and because he was doing nothing with his life. And I'm walking down the hallway there, kind of the corridor, and he yells from across, he says, "Hey, Robel." And I'm like, this dude. So I literally ignore him. And I get into the lunchroom. He follows me in there, says, "What's wrong, Robel?" And I had a can of cocktail fruit, like, all the mixed fruit. Right. And I bang it on the table because he made me mad. I got mad. I bang it on the table. It pops open. When it pops open, the fruit goes all over this poor girl that's just trying to eat her lunch. Oh, no. But I'm so mad, I now want to fight him. Like, I literally want to fight him. But I've known him since third grade. He's punched me in the face many times. Right. I punched him in the face. So it's not a big deal to him. Right. He's like, all right, bring it, bud. Just going to fight. Yeah, like, whatever. And we'll be friends after. And this poor girl is terrified. And I look down at her, and she looks at me, and he looks at me, and we just all start laughing. But yeah, my name has been a thing. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's an interesting, for everybody listening, Robel and I are midway through day 2 at Digital Summit here in Denver, and it's been awesome. And we've talked quite a bit about brand, and it was interesting. One of the things I wanted to pick your brain on, because I'm kind of in the brand mindset right now, and especially personal brands. Right. We were talking with a client. You and I were on a call with a client recently, and we're building a brand for him with eventually, so he can have his own personal brand. We're kind of building his business brand and his personal brand simultaneously. And we're joking, about your nickname and your middle name and all that, but very sincerely, I think it's interesting to think about how we've positioned our personal brands. When you did the presentation at our summit, it was like a black and white screen, and you're like, I have a branding problem, and it was your name side of it. I'm curious, when you look back, because you mentioned something when we were on that call with that client, right? We were kind of just pumping him up and talking to him about how bright the future is, and it's a great call. Right. But you had mentioned something to me about signing your work, and there was sort of a, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there was kind of a narrative of, like, we were encouraging him to lean into his own brand, right? And you were using your lack of signing your work in the past as evidence that he needs to, type of thing. Right. I want to hear about that, because you were anyway, I just think it's an interesting dilemma from a designer perspective of building your personal brand, designing for other brands and other people, and like how you leverage that. And, because you were alluding basically to the fact that you should have signed more work. I should have signed more work. You followed the rules too strictly without. Right. Tell me about it. So it just what it's. I'm going to spin this all the way down to the fact that when I was in high school and was told I would never graduate from high school, which meant I would never go to college, that was the bar that was set for me. I believed them when they said that. And then I worked past it. But the whole time I was working past it, I believed exactly what they told me. So when I got to the point where I actually graduated high school and got accepted to a design school, to a college, even though it was the worst design school in the country, it was much more than I had expected. And I had worked my way there without realizing that I still didn't buy into the fact that I was good enough and I did belong there. I was still that kid that was told you're never going to make it. So it's almost like I had an avatar, right? And so I did it, and then I went to design school. Every single thing they told me in design school, I took that as religion. So when they said designers do not sign their work, which means you don't, besides what's in your portfolio, you don't promote the work you've done. There absolutely is no signature. There is no by whoever. And it's true. If you look at Vogue magazine, you may see credits if the magazine chooses to do that. If you look at Converse shoes and maybe they have a different type of style that they did, they don't mention who designed that, right? So unless you are the brand, designers don't get mentioned, which means you're not signing your work, which means you're behind the scenes.
Right.
And that's where you belong as a designer when you're representing or designing for a specific brand. And I still believe that. But where I went wrong is I kept it so to myself that unless you were hiring me for a job, you had no idea what I did.
Right.
So to generate a lead became very difficult because those people, they didn't know me. They didn't know what I've done. As time went on and I didn't have a personal brand, people didn't know what I had done. I hadn't signed any work. My life never got any easier. I had no runway. I had nothing to work with. I was starting over every single time I met a prospect.
Right.
So I literally would have to tell my story and convince someone this is what I'm worth. And then it was up to them if they believed me. Where if I had a personal brand and an understanding of what I had done, then I walk into that meeting and they know what I'm worth and they already believe me. That's why they want to meet with me. So it's crazy, but like I have designed brands that ended up sponsoring NASCARs that I did the skin on the NASCAR for, that raced on the NASCAR tracks all over the country and have been doing so for the last 3 years. Nobody knows I did that. Right? I've designed shoes that have been worn on people's feet all over the world. Nobody knows I did that. I designed the placement and branding in Rucker Stadium. Nobody knows I did that. I did a professional soccer team. Nobody knows I did that. So it goes on and on and on. That was a big mistake.
Yeah.
And about a year ago when I wrote my book, and I thought, wow, I wrote my book. I'm going to publish this book. And then I thought, who's going to care? And the reality is no one would care because no one knew who I was. That's when I started building my personal brand, started investing a lot of time, a little bit of money into my Instagram, and really just honing in on this is who I am. And it's starting to make a difference. But imagine if I had done that. I've been a designer for 28 years.
Yeah.
Imagine if I would have been a little more focused on saying, this is who I am.
So I relate to that. At Ascent, I've told the team that we're not going to publish our clients' work, our finished video work to our YouTube or our socials.
Right.
Like instead we've taken the approach where we're posting behind the scenes type content or reels or recaps or whatever, like a version of it to show it, but not the finished work. And my thought behind it has been, and this is where I'm interested in your perspective, that like, I don't know how to say it that doesn't sound arrogant, but that like we're better than that. And I don't mean that, but that like trusting that the work is such high quality that we'll get credit when it's due type of thing. But that's just a trust moment for me. Like I'm just like assuming that that's the case, you know, that people will see it and know that Ascent did it. Because I'm curious your perspective on, especially from a designer, which there's an interesting world there because almost every other creator signs their work.
Right.
You know, if you're an actor or you're a singer or you're a musician or you're a writer or whatever,
a painter,
your name is attached to it always. Digital marketing and design are some of the few where you're truly behind the scenes.
Right.
Like the commercials we make or the campaigns that we run or whatever, the designs that you make, the brands that you build. Do you think that there's a world though where, I don't know, like that balancing act of letting the work speak for itself versus though there is now, and maybe some of it's economic changes or culture changes where we have to sort of be self-promoters anyway. Mm-hmm. We have to build personal brands anyway. But where does that lie of, you know, does the work speak for itself or do we have to promote it? It's such a balancing, such a delicate.
I think that the work speaks for itself is the default setting.
Robel designed these shirts. Speaking of.
Yeah. So that's the default, right? The work speaks for itself. It should speak for itself. Like, you can't promote something that is not promotable. So if the work speaks for itself, if it is that strong, great. But as marketers, if you had a client that was telling you, well, it speaks for itself, I don't really need to market it. You would tell that person that is a mistake.
Yeah,
you have a brilliant product. You have an incredible service. This needs to be marketed, right? So you're actually doing yourself a disservice. Now, I get it because you want to maintain the trust of your clients and you're not really using them to promote yourself. And there's that whole thing going on there. But what I've seen is that this world is a lot more of a savage world than we realize. And competition is really where humans thrive. And so what I would do is, say I had 3 different network infrastructure companies that I was designing for, and I've had that before. And these are all larger companies. I wouldn't ever talk about any of the companies. Why? Because if this company finds out that I'm designing for this company, they're going to be upset. But at the same time, none of those companies were paying me to only work with them.
I was going to say, it's not like anybody's paying enough for exclusivity.
They weren't paying for exclusivity, and they wouldn't. Yet I'm giving it to them. Why? Because that's the right thing to do? Right for who? And so, but I've made that mistake. I've made it many times. So you should absolutely have a sizzle reel with your hottest work. And once it's been seen by the public, you can show it, right? I did a brand for a skincare company. It's called Rooks. And I was kind of getting into my signing my work phase. And so as soon as I finished the package labels, and I had done them all by hand because that's how I work it. I'm cutting every label with an X-Acto knife and putting it on the package and just really making sure everything's right. And I had it there, and I had my cutting board in green and these beautiful brown glass pieces with black and white labels on them, and the way they stacked. And I was like, God, that's sexy. And I snap it and I post it on Instagram because I was proud of it. And I get a call and they said, you need to pull that down. We have not launched that product yet. I pulled it down immediately. It was absolutely a mistake. I need to allow my client to launch their own product, right? I can't go that far. But after that product's been launched and it's public, I have the right to say, I created that.
Yeah.
And it might not be a signature on the piece, but I have the right to speak about what I've done and show the world so that I can continue. And if they want exclusivity, then it's a whole different pricing structure.
Yeah,
like you don't own me. And that's, I think, what happens with artists, right? You don't own me. I can't. You can't keep me in a little box.
Right.
You own what I sold you, and then if you release that to the world, I'm going to show it too. If we sign something in the beginning saying I can't do that, then I'm going to charge you for that. And that's where like reciprocation. I'm really turning to looking for reciprocation over anything at this point in my life.
Define that for me. Reciprocation. What does an ideal reciprocating relationship look like? Is it monetary? Is it respect? Is it value?
I think it's everything in life, right? And so, like, for example, if we look at, let's take it to nature, right? If we look at a tree, what does a tree provide the world? Oxygen, right? Fruit, sometimes oxygen, all kinds of things. It drops fruit, shade, right? Room for shrubs and things to grow, animals to have shade, a place to live, all of those things, right? But it also takes. It drinks water, right? It needs carbon dioxide.
I have no idea.
So these are things that it needs, right? So there's a reciprocation going. Everything gives and takes. Waves go out into the sea and then come back. There can't be a wave if it doesn't go both directions, right? So everything is reciprocal. For some reason, I learned that the way for me to survive and gain favor was not to accept reciprocation, to do ultimate kindness and never expect anything back. And I've realized that that's not only an unfair situation for me, but to anyone that I'm giving to. Because nobody appreciates an endless well.
Was the logic behind that if you just kept giving, that your value would get large enough that then eventually there would be reciprocation? Like, what was any idea
or favor at some point,
like a larger return at some,
Yeah.
Because I relate to that so much because I'm a giver.
Right.
I give,
Right.
and it's so hard for me to take.
Right.
Like almost impossible.
Right. And so this is what it comes down to, I think, is like, I don't know how that happened to you. I'm pretty sure I know how that happened to me. I can actually go back in time and figure out like when I started making those decisions. But I think that, okay, so I'll talk about that. So I came up in a world where I had to earn every bit of respect I had, and most of the time it was through violence or being incredible at what I did. So if it was music, I had to be incredible. I had to be on point every time, everything perfect. The minute I had a scratchy throat, felt sick, people were literally mad at me. And I was 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old. That's what was expected of me, right? Couldn't be emotional, couldn't be tired, no, you handle what you're going to do. As a kid growing up, where I grew up, the way I grew up, with the parents that I had, the things that I had, the other way respect was given was through violence. So if you didn't get the respect you wanted, you would beat it out of them. And that's how I saw people act. I tried to be better, so my kind of rule was if you wanted to hurt me, I would hurt you first, right? And then you would respect me. So as I was growing up through that, then again, like told I wasn't going to graduate high school, the frustration of that, finally get to college. I don't really belong here. I get through that. I do great and I'm killing it. Then I go and I work for free for a year because no one will hire me. And of course I'm fine with that because I don't deserve to be hired anyways. I wasn't even going to graduate high school and I get through that. And then all of a sudden I get that one day, and this actually happened. A man calls me and says, "Can you design shoes?" And I say, "I know the design process." "Sure, I think I can." And he said, "All right, great. I'd like to meet with you." And I meet with him, and he has this company called Z-Coil. And they're still in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And they have a patented technology that allows the heel of the sole to bounce so that it takes pressure off your knees and anything else. Extremely heavy. I think they've hopefully worked on it by now. But a lot of other technologies have stemmed from there, from the Air Maxes and different things that have happened in shoes in general. While the uppers were for nurses, usually. Some type of, they didn't have a very athletic look. So people were claiming that the shoe was ugly. Had this big spring in the back, this big heel hanging off of it, kind of a tennis shoe in the front, and then like a nurse shoe or like an elderly person's shoe upper on top. It was not very attractive. So they said, "We would like for you to redo our uppers." So I met with him. I said, "This is my process. I'm going to draw these shoes. I'm going to draw ideas. I'm going to bring them to you. Raw ideas. We're going to choose some. I'm going to expand on those. I'm going to draw more that look similar to that, what you like. Then we're going to narrow it down, and we'll get the shoes you like, and those are the ones you'll go with." He says, "All right, how do you charge?" I said, I believe that I charged him $35 an hour. My first job. $35 an hour. And so he says, great price, let's go. So I get to work, and I work. I mean, I'm literally going through books of tracing paper, drawing these shoes. And I come up with a line that looked great. Probably about 50 different ideas. So we go through them, and he chooses about 5 ideas. I get those 5 ideas, I expand them out to another 50. I bring those back. He's like, "I like this, and I like this, and I like this." He grabs 3 or 4 of them. He says, "Do you mind if I show these to my son?" Now, I didn't really want to share my comps with him. I hadn't been paid, and we were early in the process. I wanted to finish the project before I handed anything over, but he was nice enough. I was nice enough. And for business to be good, I should be nice. So I was. I was a nice young man. And so I went ahead and gave him that work. We left and then had a meeting like a week later. When I came back, he had the 4 drawings all airbrushed beautifully. The textures of the fabrics, the leather, everything. I mean, everything. They were gorgeous. He handed me my copies, which I really appreciate to this day. He kept his, and he put down a check face down. We talked a little bit, and he said, "All right, well, I have you paid, so let's go ahead and I'll let you know if I need anything else." I look at the check, and the check's for $75. Not even for 2 hours of work at that point. Right? Well, just a little over.
Yeah.
Right? Just a little over 2 hours of work at that point. So I tell him, what is this? Like, is this a payment? Or because this isn't the complete payment. I'd had, I don't know, between 10 and 15 hours of work. It was a long time ago. But that was not it. He owed me a lot more money. And that was a lot of money to me then. I was working as a cashier at my grandmother's restaurant and designing for free, basically, besides this first job.
Right.
And he said, I know, but if I pay you anything more, my son will be mad at me, so that's all we can afford right now. And he grabs his paperwork, and he stands up, and he walks out. Now, I'm sitting there, and I have choices. One choice is I can stand up, and I can follow him to his car, and I can tell him that if he doesn't pay me, I'm going to leave him bloody on the street. And he'll probably pay me. I probably won't even have to do it. And if I do have to do it, I'll take what he owes me, and that'll be that. Or I can sit here and watch him walk away, but at least I don't have the reputation of being violent or scary or mean. And maybe at some point he'll come back to me and there's a chance for more work. And I chose to allow this man to steal from me, walk out, and leave. And then that set the course for the way I treated my clients from then on. And literally the only clients that have paid me what I deserve are the ones that chose to. Because the reality is that my mentality would allow anyone to hurt me from that point on. Because I thought that that was the right thing to do. And I have made all my mistakes in life based on the right thing to do. Right? And so as I look at it now, I'm like, man, I searched for being kind and thought that my strength was in being kind. And I still think that kindness is strength. It really is. Because you can't be kind without it.
Right.
And you can't be strong without kindness. But searching to be kind, listen to that. Searching to be kind is the quickest way to empty your glass. And once your glass is empty, it's empty.
Yeah.
So what I am now searching for is moments of reciprocation and not to give unless reciprocation is evident and quick. And I'll give first, but if it doesn't come back, I know that's a bad situation. And I'm going to treat it as such, whatever that may be and whatever that treatment may require. And this is something that, like, in the last 2 weeks, I've really started. And I feel like if you look at my Instagram page, I'm like, man, everything I said is bullshit at this point. Like, all I talked about was being kind and give first. And I still mean all those things. It's not bullshit. Because I think a place from kindness is where we really need to be. But what I really realized is that if you give too much, you actually hurt the person in front of you more than you help them.
Right.
Because it kills their ability to have gratitude. If everything's given to them, they can't appreciate it anymore. It's like an endless well, right? This doesn't happen. So if they have to earn your trust, earn your respect, earn the ability even to work with you, whatever it may be, if they have to earn that, they will respect it. And then they'll fight to keep that. Where if you just give it to them, the only way you can go from there is to a situation where it's not respected or appreciated.
Yeah. That idea of kindness, it gets complicated because I guess what I'm getting at is where do you draw the line, or how do you, because I'm still a believer definitely that, kindness is the answer.
Right.
Like definitely that we want to do right by each other. And, I still have my philosophy that givers gain and things like that. So I feel like we're missing something of the, you still have to be kind. You still have to give. You still have to, put yourself out there in that way, but somehow structure it so that the reciprocation is discussed. Like, do you define it? You know what I mean? Like take you and I, for example, we're both givers.
Right.
And I feel like we have a very reciprocative relationship.
Right.
You add value in my life. I add value in your life. We're genuinely friends, but we also professionally, collaborate and things like that.
Right.
I guess that's my question is, why do you think that works? Because this works.
Right.
But in many cases, because I'm relating to your story so much because I have clients that, very similar.
Right.
It's like, if you had any idea what I've given you for free.
Right.
By the way, you owe me money. then also, you're mad at me right now and calling, whatever. It's like, if you had any idea how much value I've given you, you would never talk to me like that. So it's like, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is what's the difference where, because I'd love to figure that out, because I still want to be definitely a giver.
Right.
Still definitely want to, lean into kindness. And I hope when people like look at my life that they think like, man, that guy added value.
Right.
Also though, want to get paid.
Right.
Also want to
be appreciated.
Yeah.
Right?
So I guess that's the thing is like, because we never, and maybe our relationship works because we're both such givers.
Right.
Like, it's why I'm like, Robel, come to Denver. We're at Digital Summit. And you're like, I'm on my way. It's the type of thing we do all the time.
I think that there's a lot of complementing factors with us. One is you own a business that my skill set can help, and you have a business that helps my skill set and that I can make money with. Right. Because the honest truth is, looking for work to me is not my favorite part of the day.
Right.
Doing the work is. Right.
Meanwhile, I'm really good at finding the work.
Meanwhile, yeah. So that complements right then and there. The other thing is that I know what it takes to do what you do because I've been there. And you understand what it takes to do what I do because there's an appreciation of that.
Like our backgrounds are set up to where there's almost that, because I think what you're talking about is maybe respect. And we have enough understanding of each other's backgrounds that the respect was there to begin with. Right. Maybe.
Yeah, that. And then also, like, I did start my relationship with you and you started it with me in a very giving way. I remember you tried to set a guideline. You're like, how much will you charge per project? Blah, blah, blah. Let's talk about this. Let's figure it out. And I said, Ben, go get a project. Whatever you get, we'll split it. We'll figure it out. And then you said, really? All right, cool. Let's jump in. And then we did. And then it was consistent and it was fair every single time, which has made for a great relationship. Right. But I think that comes down to a respect and appreciation for what we do, a gaining, right? There's a reciprocal situation. I gain, you gain. And then the fact that we both are smart enough to value something like that. Right. But we are both actively earning it at the same time because we reciprocate to each other. You're not just sending me checks, right? I'm not just doing work and sending you 50%, or whatever percentage we agree on the project. So that comes down to the fact that it's like, it literally proves that reciprocation is more important than being kind.
So how do you get there?
By being kind until it's not reciprocated, and then noticing it quickly, and then either moving in another direction or putting the person in check. Immediately, right? And
so do you think that? Go ahead, finish your thought.
And I think that is the hard part for us because we'd rather just move on. Like, that sucked. All right, well, what's next? Right? I'm fine. I'm standing here. I'm fine. I'm not that hurt. It's okay. Like,
even though we are.
Yeah, it was only a few $1,000. Let's just, find the next project, or whatever it is.
Are you sensitive?
The weird thing about me is I'm not that sensitive. I'm more sensitive to how other people feel.
Interesting. You're an empath.
Yeah. So like myself, like it takes a lot to get me. If I'm to a point where I'm like, oh no, poor me. Like this is rough on me. I'm feeling like it's bad. Yeah. I've let it go way too far.
See, I'm the biggest empath I know, almost to a fault. And I'm sensitive. So I'm always
it's hard.
Yeah. Like I'm sensitive. Like my feelings get hurt very easily. It's funny. And some of it's happened. A lot of it's kind of expedited recently. I was talking, actually, his episode comes out next week, but I'm living in sort of these dichotomy, conflicting realities now where I'm more confident than I've ever been. I've got a stack of evidence that I'm worth my salt. I'm good at what I do. I'm proud of who I've become and all this stuff. I'm confident. Meanwhile, I'm so insecure and sensitive, more so than I've ever been, which it's a weird balancing act. But anyway, I
think that this is what I think. I think that your confidence is challenged because you are growing at a pace that is so fast that you are never comfortable anymore.
You nailed it.
Like, when are you comfortable?
Never. I was uncomfortable today.
Yeah. So if you're never comfortable, how can you ever have confidence?
And so that you nailed it.
Right. And you can have that confidence to say, I can get through this discomfort, but like it's still crushing on ego and confidence. Say, I don't know how though.
Right. Yeah.
I just know I can. I don't know how. People don't want to put like. Usually when people have a ton of confidence and you see that stride and they're doing they're living exactly where their comfort zone
right.
is.
It's in one thing.
Right. And then there are people like you who will never live in their comfort zone.
No.
It's not going to happen. And that's much more fun. I like that more.
It's vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's where, and maybe that's tied in with it. Cause I'm just relating so much to what you're saying. Cause, I don't know. I don't want to sound arrogant.
Right.
But I have thoughts sometimes of like, I should be further than I am, or like, more successful than I am, or make more money than I do, or whatever. I don't know. I just, every once in a while think, how come I'm not further ahead? Part of me is grateful for that because that gives me my drive. I was recently just chatting with my parents a couple of weeks ago, and we were just kind of talking about, childhood, and my parents and I have come a very long way in our relationship. We're super close now, but we had some hard times in my adolescence, and we realized why I have this kind of constant need to prove my worth.
Prove yourself. Yeah.
Because it was never enough. Mm-hmm. And so then I'm like, okay, what more do I need to do?
Yeah.
So I'll do more. I'll do more. And all of a sudden I'm 33 doing more.
Yeah.
Doing more. And I wonder if that contributes, because you talked about that, because I want to go back to that idea of kindness with reciprocity. I wonder if that contributes to my inability to ask for that, because it's like I want to be enough, and then I keep thinking at some point it will be, and then everyone will write the check metaphorically, but like that. Okay, that was enough value now. You know what I mean? I don't know how to.
Right. And you're going to shock people. Like if you change today, if you made a rule set and you changed today and and you started demanding reciprocation, people would be shocked.
Yeah.
Their feelings would be hurt. I can't believe Ben's treating me this way. And it would be personal. It would go everyone you interact with in your life. Love. Because you would be changing in a way that they would not be able to understand it. But it would literally benefit the relationship because it would be more fulfilling for them and you if they can get through it.
Right.
And that's a scary thing to look at.
That's terrifying.
That's a terrifying thing to look at. But if you're really a giver, you should be teaching people how to give.
Right.
That's the biggest lesson, I think. And, just a while ago, like you took it away from yourself again when you're like, I don't want to seem arrogant. Why not? Does that hurt other people? Does that make them feel worse about themselves? Why are we so worried about sounding arrogant or sounding like we know? Like, at the end of the day, you should be shooting your own shots. You should be saying, I'm really good at what I do. I work very hard at what I do. I'm a great dad and I love my kids. I'm an incredible husband because I love my wife more than anything. Like, I'm a great person in my community and I deserve to be treated like that.
Yeah.
And that arrogance.
So is it insecurity?
Is okay. I think.
Because like when you look at your life and that giver dilemma, when you boil down the reluctance to ask for reciprocation or boundaries or worth or whatever,
right?
Do you think that's because there's some insecurity lying there, or like where do you think?
I think that I know we all have insecurities, so I can't sit here and say I'm secure in every way.
But that's not the problem.
And especially in men, right? Like we are, as men, we're super insecure,
yeah.
Especially in this world at this point, because everything's questioned at this point.
Right.
So
no one says, "Hey, you're doing a good job."
No. And then if you were like, why should they?
Right.
Why should anyone tell you that? Right. And
like after my presentation today, I'm like, "How was it?" And everyone's saying good, and I didn't believe them.
Right.
Like I'm like, "Tell me how bad it was."
It was flawless. Like,
somebody
and you
tell
didn't
me
believe
the
them.
truth.
Yeah. So that's true, but I don't know if it's insecurity. I think it's that we don't want to make people uncomfortable. Right? And so if we look at like somebody that sucks the air out of the room or puts all the light in the room, either one, and everybody turns to see, in all honesty, those people aren't even uncomfortable. They're just enjoying the presence of someone. And if they don't like them, they move on to another situation. But people like you and I, Ben, with sucks is that we are afraid to be polarizing.
Yeah.
We want to be loved by everybody. We don't want to have real love and then also real dislike.
Right.
We don't want that. We want to be loved by everybody, but that's not real. So what happens is those people, all that love that's like easily given, easily taken, when we're not exactly who they thought we were supposed to be or how we were supposed to be in every single way, like maybe we are exactly that in 10,000 ways, but that one way, I can't believe this. And all of a sudden they feel very hurt and violated that we were different there.
Yeah.
But there are other personalities where they've had to earn that reciprocation, earn that respect, earn that kindness, right? Any act of kindness, it was earned. And when that person acts a little different and says, hey, that's a little too far, they're like, oh, okay, I get it. Because they actually appreciate the times that person is saying, here, let's go grab some lunch. Let's hang out.
So do you think that's, is it a boundary thing? Like you could lead with kindness and lead with giving, lead with, adding value, but structure it different?
I think so. I'm hoping so. Because the reality is I'm not going to change.
Yeah. Like
I don't know how to change. I don't know how to be anyone but me. Right?
Ever not just pouring into people. I love pouring. And to be clear too with this, I like who I am. Like I love
me too.
Pouring into people. So
like I'm never going to not want to give first. I'm never not going to want to give more. I'm never not going to want to, I love making people happy. I love overperforming, right? I love all of that stuff. So then what's the balance? Because if I love that, do I love being taken advantage of? Do I love not being appreciated? Do I love not being compensated correctly? Do I love not being able to really build wealth because I'm continuing to prove myself? Do I love any of that? Absolutely not. I don't like that.
Is there a way to have both?
So is there a way to have both? And I think that's creating a rule set, a boundary that you follow when needed, right? And so, like, I don't always walk around with my knife out. But if I need to cut an apple, I pull my knife out and I cut my apple. And you told me it was dull. I need to sharpen it.
It is, by the way.
It is dull. Yeah.
And everybody listening, don't be worried about Robel. His knife's very dull.
Very dull. We're good.
Couldn't even cut open my cardboard box.
You couldn't even cut the plastic on the water bottle container. Yeah. But that being said, I don't walk around like that, right? I don't walk around with a hammer. But if there's a nail, then I need a hammer.
Right.
So I think that it's just another tool set. And I've implemented tool sets into my life and everything that I do. So my thought would be to implement that tool set. And I think it's easier for a person who's overly kind, and it is overly kind, like it's unbalanced at this point, and I've paid the price. For somebody who's overly kind to then implement the tool sets to say, hey, wait a minute, that's a little too far. Or, hey, you're not appreciating me. Like, it's okay to say you don't appreciate what I do because you're not doing the same for me. And then being willing to see where the relationship falls at that point, right? That person may say, wow, God, I'm sorry, let me do more. And you're like, wow, this is a great relationship. Or that person may say, what do you mean? I do this, 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 and this. At that point, I got to look at myself. Like, wait, maybe they do. Maybe I haven't paid attention myself.
Yeah.
There's a whole checks and balances
complexity
to reciprocation, right? But if you're just nice, you never look into that.
Yeah. It almost like forces a real lens on dynamics and relationships. You have to be critical almost.
And you nailed it, right? So I want to turn from an optimist to an optimistic realist.
So there's an argument, though, just in the defense of optimism, because I will be an optimism till the day I die.
Me too. That's why I want to be optimistic.
Most of the time, things work out. I guess that's relating to optimism as a worldview, not necessarily optimism in business dealings. Like that's a different conversation, which we're having. But optimism as a worldview, most of the time, is actually the realist view because things typically work out, generally speaking.
Right.
Like odds are in your favor. If you're an optimist, that's the way things will go. So I wonder, because I wrestle with that, like applying that to life, of the relationships and being an optimist and whatever. It's such a delicate balance of, like, I don't know. I think maybe my perspective on that might be that I'm still willing to give trust rather than need it to be earned, but quicker to take it.
Right.
Like somehow a different trigger point.
But what if your giving was the opportunity for them to earn your trust?
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to give that either. Like, if we really look at it, you could just, nobody can earn my trust. I don't trust anybody. And that's a lot of people's attitude. But it's like, no, I'm fair. Right. And so I think it's the pursuit of fairness. Is really what it is. Right. And so, no, I'm fair. I give everybody the opportunity to earn my trust.
Right.
That sounds fair to me.
When you look back, and at the risk of, like, I don't know, poking too deep or whatever, but do you have regrets about being too much of a giver, being too kind, or is it just something you're wanting to improve on?
Well, this is what I think. I don't really regret much because I've had an incredible life. Like, it's not been easy, and it might have been easier, but maybe it wouldn't have been as incredible. So I can't say that I have any regrets, but I can say that there are things that would have worked out better for me and the non-reciprocating person if I would have demanded that reciprocation and respect in every aspect of my life, right? From professional to personal. And so in realizing that, I didn't help anyone.
Yourself or them.
Or them. And that's where I really came to realize, like, this is not being mean, this is being fair.
Yeah. No, and I like that because I read a while back that every time we rescue someone, and this would be, whatever it is, like if you're going to give someone a brand.
Right.
Or if I'm going to, I don't know, give somebody free marketing or whatever, that we rob them of an opportunity to grow. Mm-hmm. Like if they have to invest in the process also, first of all, they're invested financially, but now they're invested emotionally. And the likelihood of the success of the whole thing is higher. Like, and because that's one of the things from just a parenting perspective, it's counterintuitive because you have to let your kids, you have to let them struggle. Like you can't always just rescue and jump in. Mm-hmm. But for guys like you and I, that's our instinct. Because we want to give and protect and
save the
all
day.
That. But
save the day, guys.
Which is a fascinating dilemma to consider because if you do that, you get the exact opposite outcome of what you wanted.
Yep.
You thought you were doing right by them to protect them, but you actually did wrong by them by protecting them because you robbed them of an opportunity to grow. And I wonder if a version of that happens in the professional space. Like you robbed somebody the opportunity to struggle through affording a brand.
Right.
Or you robbed somebody through, like, if I'm too lenient with my marketing, did I rob them from, the opportunity to struggle through their growth phase of their business or whatever, Right. I never thought of it like that, but there might be some validity there.
Yeah. I think the demanding of reciprocation actually makes a bond in the relationship. No matter what type of relationship that makes it stronger and more productive. And so without that reciprocation, then it's one-sided and weak. It's off balance.
Yeah.
And so off balance means not fair. So you can't be a fair person if you're not being fair to yourself.
We won't have time to do this to go all the way here, but just to get maybe we will. So on the giver's gain philosophy.
Okay.
And I believe it.
I do too.
Adamantly. And I tell my wife all the time. The caveat is that takers gain too in the short term.
Right.
The philosophy is that givers gain in the long term. And it's because takers win early on because they're taking. So obviously they win. There's a short-term gratification. There's a quick win. But they never build the social equity.
Right.
They never build the relationships, the community, the network, the, referral partners, the whatever, where givers win in the long term, but not always in the short term. So I'm just curious, Just the whole philosophy. Are you thinking, though, that the time horizon has been long enough now to recognize that maybe there's still some balance in that too?
I think there is. And I think this is what I think, right? Like we can still be giving, but there are different ways for people to reciprocate.
In fact, I'm glad you said that because we used to say givers gain, ascend. Mm-hmm. And early on, what that meant is just give shit away.
Right.
Now what that means.
And you have gained.
Yes. And we have. Grown. We have. But also a lot of those have turned into headaches and, people not valuing or whatever. So I still believe givers gain. And we've always said that. There's caveats now. One is the client has to know we're giving. This is out of scope. Normally we charge this, but we're going to do it for this. Like even just that, like the little, word track to define it. But secondly, what we've realized is that it's not, the philosophy of giver's gain doesn't just mean give everything away.
Right.
It means like add value when you can.
Right.
Give the referral, pump them up, give them the compliment, connect people that can benefit one another.
Have that extra conversation.
Yeah. There's ways to add an abundance of value that isn't just a handout.
Exactly. And so think about this.
So you can still give, which is in our nature.
Right. In the world of MMA, people have to start somewhere. I owned a gym, Undisputed Fitness in Santa Fe. It's still there. And it's under different ownership. It is still a magic place. At the point that I owned it, we were struggling to make rent. We were struggling to grow this thing. I had sold my house, put all my money into it. This whole thing's coming together. And it was magical. The real fighters would show up, and none of them ever had money. But they needed a place to train. Them training at our gym gave our gym validity to people that were doctors, attorneys, housewives that wanted to come in and learn how to hit a bag or some mitts and take our KO cross training class or whatever we were doing. Now, when those guys would come in, none of those fighters ever said, "Can I just train here? I'm a fighter." They would say, "Hey, I can wash the mats." That was always the first thing. "I'll clean the mats. I'll help keep the gym clean. Do you need help teaching any classes?" In exchange for me training here.
So there's still reciprocation.
Right? And the reciprocation was there. How many times have you had someone come and say, "Hey, Ben, I just started this new business. I need to market it to get it going. Is there any way I can come? I have no money. Can I make sure that the office is clean? Can I keep the desk clean? Make sure there's no dust. Whenever you're doing your podcast, maybe I can help you with your setup. Make sure the sound's good. Maybe you can teach me how to work your soundboard." There's a lot of ways somebody can reciprocate to you. I bet you it's never been offered, not even once.
Do you think that's because what we do is intangible?
No, it's because they perceive you in a place of power. And they say, he can afford it. Let me see what I can get out of him. Mm. And then you give, and they say, "Well, yeah, that was easy. Of course, that's what he does. It's just one more." So it's not appreciated. It's literally belittled.
Right.
And then because of that, they never even check their emails on their list of leads that they're getting because it's not appreciated. So they get a lead and they ignore it.
And then
nothing ever happens. And then it doesn't work. And then what favor do they give you? They go and tell their friends when they're later on having a beer at the bar, social media marketing doesn't work.
Right.
Right? And so if we look at it like that, it's like we helped no one by giving that away.
That's a good point.
So it's like there are different ways to reciprocate. What are you willing to do to make sure this is worth it for both of us?
Right.
And I think that's where fairness comes in. Now, another way you can give is if maybe you're watching a hockey game at the bar or at the restaurant or whatever, and you see a younger person and they have some questions about what you do and they're inspired by it, and you give them 15 minutes of a conversation, that's giving.
Right.
So I think our idea of giving is distorted. Because in us, we don't feel like it's giving unless it's really costing us something.
Right. And I love that too, that to reframe the relationships as fair.
Fair.
And that fair is actually better for both parties. Like a one-sided relationship isn't good for anyone.
You and I always say that. Is that fair?
Right.
That's the check-in.
We do use those words.
Ben, is that fair?
Yeah.
Yes, it's fair. All right, cool. Boom.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, like these are the hours I put in. This is what it costs. What do you think? Well, what do you think about this? All right, is that fair? Fair.
Are
cool.
we good? Boom. And are we actually good?
Yeah, and on to the next thing. But the minute it's fair is not emotional.
No, I like that. Fair is a very fair measurement,
and that's the measurement, and it makes for a longer situation. I have no animosity towards you at all.
Right.
I can't say that about a lot of the people I work with.
Right.
And so that,
and it's because our relationship is fair.
Fair. But that's not okay for them, for those people, because I provide an awesome service.
Right.
I make their businesses better. So if I have a little animosity because this prick just keeps on lowballing me, man. Every time I come with a quote, he's a this and that. And then at the same time, I'm watching him make money like crazy. And, and it's just, then I'm like, all right, well, I need the money. I'll get it done.
Then it's not fair for anybody.
No, I'm still going to do a good job because that's who I am. But it's not a good situation.
Right.
It's not fair.
Right.
So
keep giving. Yeah. That doesn't change. Just structure it so that it's fair.
Structure is fair and expect reciprocation.
Right.
That should be expected. It's a given. Just like giving is a given.
So is reciprocation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't extend so far that you're falling on your face. Like,
right. That's
the thing. And then you said, prove myself. You said that earlier. I was working with Matt Taylor from Durango a while back on something that we were doing together. And it was a really good experience working with him. I really enjoyed it. And one day, he used to like to work late at night. And so he'd call me up and he'd be like, we get on videos during COVID. He'd call me up and say, hey, man, let's get to work. And we'd work to like 4 a.m. on this stuff, right? And I'd assign him homework. Go do this, Matt, and then come back, give me it, and then I'll implement it. Oh, at Robel. And he'd say, I'll call you around 7, 8 tonight, 9 tonight, 10 tonight. And all right, cool. And then I think I'm going to get it. And no, that's when he'd start the work. So we'd work all the way through it. But I loved it. And it was during COVID. So just hanging with someone was awesome. So we'd get through it. And Matt is one of those people that is hyper intelligent and he's studying everything. So one day as we're talking, he says, Robel, stop. And I stop. And he says, you need to quit proving yourself. I wasn't even trying to prove myself in the moment. But he called me out on it. And he said, that's enough. You're really good at what you do. You're a great guy. You're a good dad.
We can just work.
Stop it. Stop proving yourself.
Yeah.
To everyone. And so I think when we're over giving and overextending, it's because we're proving ourselves.
Right. And we don't need to anymore.
And that's not being a hero. That's not helping anyone. It's literally just energy going.
Right.
It's a waste of energy.
Yeah. It's a drain on us. It's not adding value anywhere.
Yeah. And so then I go back to my Instagram and I'm like, dude, every single one of my Instagram posts is positive. I don't allow myself to say anything negative ever about anything. That is not a true depiction of life.
Right.
That wave is not coming out. So every post I have is energy of me saying, here's more positive energy. Take that positive energy. More positive energy. That's draining me. Sometimes I got to say, man, people suck. And I keep pushing and I'm not getting back. So remember when somebody's giving to you to appreciate that.
Right.
That's not even that negative, but I won't even do that.
Yeah. Yeah, neither will I. But I do like, and just to sort of wrap us up. But I love where we ended with that. You still can give, you still want to add value, you still want to be the giver and kindness, but with fairness.
Yeah, and I guess if I was going to make cool terms, I'd say give tactically.
Yeah. Right.
Give things that won't hurt you, that you're not going to extend yourself on, and to give people the opportunity to earn, for your trust to be earned.
Right.
So here's this gift. Now you can earn my trust with this or not. And how do they earn it? With reciprocation.
Right.
If it's not there, give them a chance and say, hey man, you didn't really reciprocate on that last one. So how should we treat this one? And then shut up.
Yeah.
What will they say?
And have the hard conversation.
Yeah. And that took me a second to come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And they may say, oh man, I didn't realize it. But from that point on, you have now gained respect.
Yeah.
That respect will bring you to fair.
Right.
And then you can actually have a friend.
And it's probably going to be better off anyway.
It will.
A stronger relationship, a stronger friendship, a stronger business relationship or whatever. Yeah.
And so it just comes down to like where we're like, things are uncomfortable for men. Men have a big responsibility in this world. And one is to teach people how to act with each other.
Right.
And we need to act fairly.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's far enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Fair. I can't think of anything better than fair.
So I'm going to try.
I love it.
I'm going to try. That's all I can say is I'm going to try. I've had some cool examples, people that I've been around. My brother's one of them. He's extremely fair to a T. There's no emotion in it. It's everything is, this is fair or it's not.
Yeah.
And And then I've paid attention to successful people and other people. And there are people that take too much, and there are people that are very thoughtless. And I'm not saying to be that. I think that there's beauty and strength in giving. But I think there's sustainability in being fair.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. So keep giving.
Yeah.
Be fair, though, and make sure our relationships reciprocate.
Yeah.
Love it.
And I don't know what the tools are, but maybe we make a list. We should make a list and put them on our Instagrams.
Yeah.
And say, this is what we're going to try to do.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Good exercise.
Yeah. All right, man.
Robel, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
For the conversation, for being who you are. Thank you for being a fair friend of mine.
Absolutely.
And a fair, business partner and all of these things.
Absolutely.
And thank you for adding the value. And I think that's the biggest thing is don't stop that.
I won't.
But do demand fairness.
Yeah.
Because you deserve it. We all do. We both do.
I think it'll make a better world.
No doubt.
Cool, man.
Thanks, Robel.
All right.